Welcome to the Creative Grove. Today we're going to learn how to create some sponge snowdrifts, and here you see several masks that I've cut from post-it notes. At the top you'll find the sticky portion or a part of it, and then I have a couple where I didn't have any, so I added some two-way glue along that ridge where you just saw me point to, and I let that dry so that it turns into its own post-it note. Here I'm going to combine several. Here one has a steep down slope, and I'm going to add a tree at that the bottom of that tiny little hill on the left. So now I want another one that's going in the opposite direction. So here you have one that goes along that side, and that little dip right there I'm going to add a tree. So I have one on that side and one on the other side, and now I'm going to add another slight crest right there coming down. So I just need to find a mask that'll match that. Usually when I cut my masks for snowdrifts, I cut several just because I'm never really sure of what I'm going to use. And that leaves plenty of room for a sky right there. Now we'll move this entire project onto a white piece of printer paper so that we have something to catch some of our sponging, because we're going to start off our paper. We're just going to add that down and add several little tiny post-it notes to just help secure our card to our scrap paper there. So I think I used 4 total. You want to make sure that anytime you're adding a mask that you're not interfering with the space that you're going to be working on. So notice that mine are pretty far down. It's very easy to leave one and then you have an awkward edge that you can't fix. So I'm going to start with a sponge, and this is a soft sky sponge. And I'm just going to dab very lightly onto my work surface. I'm starting by dabbing off because the harshest color is going to be there. As you press down, I want to press down very lightly, and I would encourage you to practice this on a piece of scrap paper before starting on your project. That way you get a good sense of what is too harsh or what is too hard of a press. And don't worry too much if you do it a little too hard on the bottom, because you'll cover it up, but it will matter when you start to go into darker colors. Now you saw that I just dabbed several sponges down. You saw that I dabbed down a little bit all over my project, and that's created a base before I did my swirling motion. Now the swirling motion with the sponge, and here I'm going into Adirondack Lights Sky Blue, I'm sorry, Cloudy Blue. And I'm going to cover that up over the soft sky. And my bottom isn't, I'm not worrying too much about being perfect here on the bottom, just because this is really an undercoating. You're not going to actually see any of this color. It's just helping prep my project for some of the darker colors. But it's good to kind of get the feel of what you need on your project. Now I'm moving into the Stampin' Up! Marina Mist, and I'm going to add a nice, soft, smooth blend here. Note, I am starting off my project and softly swirling across my project. I can't stress that enough. This really needs to be in a soft, circular motion. When I say soft, I mean more of a lighter touch, not pressing down too hard, and that's what's going to give you that smooth look. Now here I'm going to show you the top to the bottom. You can see the bottom is a little smoother than the top. The top I haven't really added any of that Marina down yet, so we don't have a smooth surface yet. We have a little bit more of a harsh color. And we're creating our sky right now. We're going to add several colors. I'm going to now move into the Adirondack Brights Stonewashed. And Adirondack is an ink made by Ranger. It's a little bit of a heavier ink than the Stampin' Up, so meaning wet a little longer. I love their colors, and they work really great for creative scenery. Sometimes you don't really want a color that's going to dry immediately, and the Stampin' Up dye-based inks dry super fast. So, but the more we layer, the harder it's going to become for our ink to be soaked in, or the longer it's going to take. So we've created a nice coating of our Stonewashed, and we're now moving into the Adirondack Brights Denim. Or before we do that, we're going to add some of this Perfect Plum, and this is a very nice grayish purplish hue. We're going to add just a little part. I'm not going to add any of this to the bottom, because when you're looking at a sky, you always have the darkest portion at the top. And this purple underneath several blue layers is going to really give us a nice indigo color. And I love adding purple to a sky. It's definitely a color you should always add to an evening sky. Now here at the, we're going to add some of that stream. Forgive me. Here we're going to add some of denim over it, and that's really transforming this purple into a purplish blue, more of a violet really. We're keeping it at this point concentrated more towards the top and not so much to the bottom. Now I put my sponge down a little too hard with that purple over there on the right side, so that's going to be my heavier portion. I'm going to have to work a little bit to even it out. I usually have one part of the sky that's a little darker than the other, just so that you can almost sense where the light is, because if you leave an area that's a little lighter, then that's usually where your light source. Have a moon or anything like that here. We are going to have stars eventually when we actually stamp and finish this card. This video right now is just about sponging the snowdrifts, but you can't do that without creating the sky. So we were going to work on the sky first. So now I'm going to add a little tiny bit of Stampin' Up! Midnight Muse, and this is kind of a not quite navy-ish navy. It's a lighter shade than the real true deep dark navy, but it's a very pretty color, and I'm only adding that to the top. You'll see me just swipe it across the entire project at some point, but the major concentration of the color is going to be to the very top. So this way we have a nice color blend in our sky. So now we're going to pull this mask off, and you can see the difference here. We always have the lighter part of the sky towards your horizon line or hill or whatever it is. Here we're going to start off using this is the ink pad Aqua. This is a Adirondack Lights pad. And we're going to start from the bottom upward. When you're creating your snowdrifts, you really want to go from your mask upward. So I'm just dabbing a little bit on just to prep my project. Now I'm going to come over it and very intentionally add my color right at my mask line. I don't want to go too far up initially. Initially, I just want to start down at the bottom and then slowly work my color up strategically. I know it looks like I'm going up high, but I'm really keeping my color really to the bottom half of that snowbank. Now where you add your shading, this is really where you can imagine if you're looking at a snowdrift, you're seeing the shadowy part or the darker portion of it towards the bottom. And that's really how you want to think of it when you're sponging it. So we're now going into Marina Mist, and we're going to add a little Marina Mist over the Aqua. The Aqua color is really more of a greenish blue, and it's the perfect color of ice. If you've ever gone on an Alaskan cruise or been in the Antarctic, you've seen that kind of tealish blue ice, and that is what that Aqua color provides. And then we're just going to add a little bit Marina Mist in just certain areas, and that's going to help layer our blues and give us a really beautiful shadowy ice look. And those areas are really where we're a little bit of a background for our trees so that they pop a little. At the end of this video, I'm going to have some close-ups of this part all done, and I'm pointing right now to where I'm going to put some trees and where that shadow is going to go. And then after the close-ups of this, I have a picture of the completed project, and we will have a video in the VIP community on how to finish this project as well. Right there is where we're going to have a tree, so we want to add a little bit more of a shadow, and we're going to now take some stone washed and add a little stone washed right there just at the bottom. And by keeping that darker color at the bottom, it helps ground that shadow a little bit. So it's really by working in layers that you develop the depth that you're looking for. So now we're going to lift that up, and that's where you really see where the shadow is. And you see how it is really at the bottom. That's really where your shadow is going to begin. Now you are going to need to move your masks around like I just did. Now you see where the white meets the bottom shadow there. We're going to add a little bit of color up on that ridge at some point, because it's just too much of a contrast. We're going to make it light, the aqua blue right there, and that is going to help kind of tone down the contrast. You don't want it to be too stark, and that's really an important point as well. So here we're just going to add some aqua all around, and we're kind of deciding where we're going to have a shadow, and where I'm going upward is where I'm going to end up bringing my Marina Mist, and eventually where I'm going to ground that kind of texture in the snow with the stone washed as well. You can see right now this is a lower layer just at the bottom. And now we're going to start to work upward where we're going to keep our trees. We're kind of going in an upward sweeping motion there, and then on the other side we're going to create a rounded part to the right side of that bank, almost like the corner, if you will. It's really important to mention that this entire sponging process needs to be so light. Really, really light, because when you start to press down, you're going to get a really ugly look that you really can't fix. You can try to, depending on how hard you press, you can sponge over it and layer colors over it, but each time you do that, it's going to get darker and darker and darker. And that's fine and all when you're doing it with a light color like the aqua or the sky blue or soft sky. But when you start to move into colors like denim and stream and not quite navy, that's when, when you make a wrong move, it kind of gets a little difficult to cover that up, because you're going to end up having to take your project a little too dark. And with the snowbanks, it's really important to keep them light. You're adding a little bit of dark color here and there, but that's really just to ground the project. You don't want it to overtake the project. So really concentrate on keeping it nice and light, keeping your hand not pressed down, but almost lifted up. Now we're going to remove those post-it notes. We're going to end up flipping those around, because you see how that bottom of the left one is in the snowbank way. If you were to start, it would create a funky ridge that you just can't fix, really. You'd have to put something over it. So here we go. Now we're going to add a little bit to the very bottom, and then on the left side we're going to make it a curve, and that's where the very large shadow is going to be. Once you've done this several times, you kind of get the feel for it. And don't worry if you don't get it right the first time. My first couple I just practiced on scrap paper, and they really didn't look all that great. It took me really about 5 before I kind of got it. So just give it a chance, practice it, experiment with the different shades of blue that you have. If you only have 3 or 4 shades of blue, work with the lighter ones. And if you only have darker ones, tap them off like you see me doing there. Tap them off as much as you can so that you don't have as deep a color on your sponges. And if you don't have 10 different sponges, that's fine too. Keep one side of your sponge for the lighter and one side for the darker. Don't cut it. Keep it whole, and that way you have a little bit more maneuvering space. You can also rinse your sponges out. Just make sure they're completely dry before you use them. Now, a lot of people do use some of the Ranger tools, the sponging tools. I personally have a difficult time getting a lighter look with those. I find that when using these hand sponges are a lot easier. I have them, they're rounds and they're cut into 6ths or 8ths. Now right there I was pointing to the difference right there of that ridge. You can really see it from the bottom one. So I'm going to come over that ridge with a very light layer of aqua, and that's going to help diffuse it a little bit and make it look a little more realistic. Now that you're armed with your own creative tips on how to make snowbanks and snowdrifts, I'm sure you can't wait to create your own winter scenery. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up and definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. Even better, subscribe to our mailing list. You can go do so by clicking this link right here. And here you have a couple of close-ups. Here are your actual snowdrifts and a few things that we added, and these videos we placed in our VIP